Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Jason White and this is my channel, Jason's Weird Reads. Thank you for joining me. This is where I like to talk about horror books, but I also talk about some fantasy and science fiction. And today I'm going to be giving you my TBR on the Scribd or Scribd app, however you pronounce it. I have a membership to Scribd. I'm just going to call it Scribd. And I've had one for about a year or two now. And when I first got on there, you know, there was decent choices, and that's the reason why I joined up. But recently, especially after listening to Crota by Owl Goingback, I've gotten a lot of really good recommendations. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, check this out. This is it right here. I mean, just look at the titles I've saved. There's a lot of horror I've noticed. One thing that I want to bring attention to is similar to Crota. This is where I found a lot of surprises in audiobooks. And you got like The Walking by Bentley Little, Turtle Boy by Keelan Patrick Burke, which is a really good audiobook. I've listened to it. It's great. The Haunted Forest Tour by James A. Moore and Jeff Strand. Flesh by Richard Lehman, Darker Than Night by Owl Goingback, The Traveling Vampire Show by Richard Lehman, Ghost Mine by Hunter Shea, Death Instinct by Bentley Little, The Rust Maidens by Gwendolyn Keist. There's so many. There's like 2 Jonathan Jans here. House of Skin and The Sorrows. I didn't actually like The Sorrows very much, but House of Skin was really good. Some more Ronald Malfi, David Morrell, more Jonathan Jans, J.A. Conrath, Origin, Adam Nevill with The Reddening, The Overlord, Tim Curran, Grimweave. That's one I haven't listened to. I gotta add that to my list. And more Bentley Little, Richard Lehman. I mean, look at all these horror books. It's such a great selection. Because I've been listening to Goosebumps, so a ton of Goosebumps books here. All audiobooks here. Alright, so as you see, that was a pretty crazy list. I mean, there's a lot of books on there that I want to listen to. I made a top 10 list here of the books that I put on my to be read pile there. And a lot of these, not all of these, I didn't bother going looked, because sometimes they're available as both ebooks and audiobooks. I didn't bother going looking for that because I wanted to keep this just as audiobooks, a list of audiobooks, mostly because that's what I'm really into. Definitely go and check out. And also, as a disclaimer, these books can disappear at any time because they're only on there. It's sort of like Netflix, where Netflix will have a movie for, say, 6 months, and then it disappears because the licensing expired. So keep that in mind if you're watching this a couple years from now and none of these books are on there. But you know, just this is a pretty cool list as it stands anyway. I highly recommend checking out these authors. I haven't read any of these books, that's why it's the TBR. So let's get into it. Number 1, Children of Chaos by Greg Gifune. I'm gonna wear my glasses. Here's a synopsis. In a torrential downpour, Phil, Jamie, and Martin, 3 teenage boys, encounter a strange and enigmatic man covered in horrible scars who will change their lives, their destinies, and the very fate of their souls forever. When their encounter mistakenly leads to murder, they realize this eerie stranger may not have been a man at all, but something much more. 30 years later now, the boys, now men, lead tormented lives filled with horrifying memories of the scarred man and what they did all those years ago in the rain. I'm going to leave it at that. That sounds like a pretty cool book. Greg Gifune. I haven't read him in a long time, but I used to read him a lot. I don't know why I haven't read him in the last few years, but I haven't read this one, and I want to read it. So that's pretty awesome that it's there. Book number 2 here is Skidding into Oblivion by Brian Hodge. Now this is a collection of short stories. I'm going to read a bit of the synopsis here. We each inhabit many worlds, often at the same time. From worlds on the inside to worlds on a cosmic scale. Worlds imposed on us and worlds of our own making. In time, though, all worlds will end. Bear witness. After the death of their grandmother, 2 cousins returned to their family's rural homestead to find a community rotting from the soul outward, and a secret nobody dreamed their matriarch had been keeping. The survivors, in another story, the survivors of the 1929 raid on H.P. Lovecraft's town of Innsmouth hold the key to an anomalous new event in the ocean. If only someone could communicate with them. In another story, the ultimate snow day turns into the ultimate nightmare when it just doesn't stop. You know, there are snow days like that. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that because just those descriptions for those first 3 stories sound really awesome. Number 3 book here is The Mouth of the Dark by Tim Waggoner. Here's the synopsis for that. JC's 20-year-old daughter, Emery, is missing, lost in a dark, dangerous realm called Shadow that exists alongside our own reality. An enigmatic, that word is stumping me today and it's appearing in every one of these. An enigmatic woman named Nicola guides JC through this bizarre world, and together they search for Emery, facing deadly dog-eaters, crazed killers, homicidal sex toys, and worst of all, a monstrous being known as the Harvest Man. But no matter what Shadow throws at them, or at him, JC won't stop. He'll do whatever it takes to find his daughter, even if it means becoming a worse monster than the things that are trying to stop him. Some interesting things in that one. Now, as you saw in that little clip there that I did, a lot of these books were suggested because I listened to an Owl Goingback book, Crota. And so Breed is on this list, and here's the synopsis for that. There is a dark underside to the sunny city of St. Augustine, Florida. An ancient evil is awakened in the Tolomato Cemetery and is intent on stalking and destroying the citizens of the town. The evil creature, a Shiru, I think that's how you pronounce it, was believed to be a mythical beast from the ancient Indian legend, otherwise Native American. The legend says the Shiru once roamed the earth attempting to mate with the women of local Indian tribes in an effort to breed, but the Indians recognized the danger and hunted them down, destroying their hideous deformed offspring. But this legend is so old that almost no one in modern-day St. Augustine knows of it, and if they did, they wouldn't believe it. That is until one, summoned by 3 women dabbling in black magic, crosses over from the dead. Now, the Shiru is determined to get revenge on the human race, and to breed with a strong woman with an ancient bloodline. Unbeknownst to her, local tour guide, half Cherokee Sabra Oni, is the Shiru's target. Fortunately for her, the rest of the town, the spirit chief Tolomato, comes to guide her and enlist her help to hunt down the evil Shiru and send it back to the underworld. At the same time, police officer Jack Colvin is working hard to track down the perpetrator of a series of grisly murders. Soon, Colvin's and Onis, I'm sure I butchered those names, paths cross, and they join forces with the help of Chief Talamato and other friendly spirits in a desperate attempt to stop the seemingly invincible Shayru. So that, it's another creature feature by the sounds of it, and I love creature features, especially if they're done right. They're just a lot of fun. Now, next up is a book that's been getting a lot of attention on horror booktube lately, and that's Come With Me by Ronald Malfi. I was really happy to see this one here. Aaron Decker's life changes one December morning when his wife Allison is killed. Haunted by her absence and her ghost, Aaron goes through her belongings where he finds a receipt for a motel room in another part of the country. Piloted by grief and an increasing sense of curiosity, Aaron embarks on a journey to discover what Allison had been doing in the weeks prior to her death. Yet Aaron is unprepared to discover the dark secrets Allison kept, the death and horror that make up the tapestry of her hidden life. And with each dark secret revealed, Aaron becomes more and more consumed by his obsession to learn the terrifying truth about the woman who had been his wife, even if it puts his own life at risk. I haven't read Ronald Malfi in a long time as well. I read one of his books, and I've only read one of his books a long time ago, but I haven't read anything else. And it wasn't because I didn't enjoy the book that I read. It's just one of those things. Alright, next up is The Summoning by Bentley Little. Here's the synopsis. Darkness is descending on the small town of Rio Verde, Arizona. An evil older than time is rising from the desert, waiting for night to fall and a reign of terror to begin. Brad Woods has performed a lot of autopsies, but never one like this. The body is purged of all blood. Fear has made Sue Wing run from the darkened school and into night, a fear so powerful she can only name it using the Cantonese myths of her grandmother. Kuphu Grinsi, the corpse who drinks blood. Reporters like Rich Carter don't believe in the supernatural, but all signs are pointing to the same conclusion. A vampire is stalking the streets of Rio Verde. No, Rich Carter doesn't believe in such things. Not yet, but he will come to believe with a faith born of horror after horror. Now, what's interesting about this book is it's a re-release of a book of Bentley Little's that went out of print. I honestly didn't know that any of his books went out of print at all, so that will be interesting. Ring Shout by Djeli Clark. This one has been a bit of a booktube darling as well. Here's the synopsis. In America, demons wear white hoods. In 1915, the birth of a nation casts a spell across America, swelling the clan's ranks and drinking deep from the darkest thoughts of white folk. All across the nation they ride, spreading fear and violence among the vulnerable. They plan to bring hell to earth, but even Ku Kluxes can die. Standing in their way are Merce Baudru and her fellow resistant fighters, a foul-mouthed sharpshooter and a Harlem hellfighter. Armed with blade, bullet, and bomb, they hunt their hunters and send the clan's demons straight to hell. But something awful's brewing in Macon, and the war on hell is about to heat up. Can Merce stop the clan before it ends the world? I like the sounds of that book, and I've been wanting to read it for a long time. So hopefully now I will be able to get to it. My number 8th book here listed is The Final Last Girl by Stephen Graham Jones. This one's interesting because if you look at the reviews, there's a lot of mixed reviews on this one, and I'm not too sure why. Here's the synopsis for it. It says here that The Last Final Girl is like Quentin Tarantino's take on The Cabin in the Woods, which, okay. That sounds interesting. I really want to check that out. Alright. Life in a slasher film isn't easy. You just have to know when to die. Aerial view. A suburban town in Texas. Everyone's got an automatic garage door opener, All the kids jump off perilous cliffs into a shallow river as a rite of passage. The sheriff is a local celebrity. You know this town. You're from this town. Zoom in. Homecoming princess. Lindsay. She's just barely accepted death at the hands of a brutal, sadistic murderer in a Michael Jackson mask. Up on the cliff, she was rescued by a horse and bravely defeated the killer alone, braless. Her story is already a legend. She's this town's heroic final girl, their angel, their virgin angel. Monster Vision. Halloween masks floating down that same river the kids jump into. But just as one slaughter is not enough for Billie Jean, our masked killer, one victory is not enough for Lindsay. Her high school is full of final girls, and she's not the only one who knows the rules of the game. When Lindsay chooses a host of virgins, misfits, and former final girls to replace the slaughtered members of her original homecoming court, it's not just a fight for survival. It's a fight to become the final girl. The last final girl. So this one sounds like it's a little bit of a poking fun at the slasher genre, and there's quite a strong possibility that maybe some people who didn't like this book just didn't understand it, which is fine. You know, there's many books I have read and don't understand, but I haven't read it yet, so I can't say for sure. I'm gonna have to read it, and maybe I'll come back and say whether or not it's good. I mean, it's Stephen Graham Jones, so it should be good, right? Alright, next up I have The Ritual by Adam Nevill. I really enjoyed the Netflix movie of this. I believe it was Netflix that did this, but I really enjoyed that movie. I watched it a couple of times, and I've been meaning to read it, but I just haven't. So here is the golden opportunity to get to it. The Ritual by Adam Nevill. Synopsis. It was a dead thing they found hanging from a tree that changed the trip beyond recognition. When 4 old university friends set off into the Scandinavian wilderness of the Arctic Circle, they aimed to briefly escape the problems of their lives and reconnect. But when Luke, the only man still single and living a precarious existence, finds he has little left in common with his well-heeled friends, tensions rise. A shortcut meant to ease their hike turns into a nightmare scenario that could cost them their lives. Lost, hungry, and surrounded by a forest untouched for millennia, things couldn't possibly get worse, could they? Maybe. It's an Adam Nevill book, so I'm thinking that they get a lot worse. And I've seen the movie. I don't know how close it is, but then they stumble across an old habitation. Ancient artifacts decorate the walls, and there are bones scattered upon the floors. The residue of old rites for something that still exists in the forest. Something responsible for the bestial presence that follows their every step. And as the 4 friends stagger in the direction of salvation, they learn that death doesn't come easy among these ancient trees. Sounds awesome. And lastly here, but certainly not least, because that list is just awesome, but I made a top 10 list here, and so I'm sticking to 10. And that is Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay. Now, I've only read one Paul Tremblay book, and that was Cabin at the End, or Cabin in the Woods, whatever. I can't remember the name right now. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a whole lot more than a lot of the Amazon reviewers did, apparently. But I think it's Cabin at the End of the World. So I've been wanting to read this because it's another post-apocalyptic, and apparently it has zombies in it. So let's check out the synopsis here. In a matter of weeks, Massachusetts has been overrun by an insidious rabies-like virus that is spread by saliva. But unlike rabies, the disease has a terrifyingly short incubation period for an hour or less. Those infected quickly lose their minds and are driven to bite and infect as many others as they can before they inevitably succumb. Hospitals are inundated with the sick and dying, and hysteria has taken hold. To try to limit the spread, the Commonwealth is under quarantine and curfew, but society is breaking down and the government's emergency protocols are faltering. Dr. Ramola Rams Sherman is a soft-spoken pediatrician in her mid-30s. She receives a frantic phone call from Natalie, a friend who is 8 months pregnant. Natalie's husband has been killed, viciously attacked by an infected neighbor. And in a failed attempt to save him, Natalie too was bitten. Natalie's only chance to survival is to get to a hospital as quickly as possible to receive a rabies vaccine. The clock is ticking, for her and for her unborn child. Natalie's fight for life becomes a desperate odyssey as she and Rams make their way through a hostile landscape filled with dangers beyond their worst nightmares. Terrifying, strange, and sometimes deadly challenges that push them to the brink. So, I've heard people compare this to the coronavirus of recent times, and how much Paul Tremblay got right in writing a pandemic before this pandemic hit. So he obviously did his research quite well, and Paul Tremblay is a writer that I want to read a lot more of. I mean, I should be read up on him and have everything he's done read, but I haven't. It's one of those things. But now another opportunity to catch up at least a little bit, having only read Cabin at the End of the World, which I really loved. I think one reason why I haven't gone back to Paul Tremblay is because Cabin at the End of the World was really tense, and sometimes I just don't want to do tense. Survivor Song here sounds like another tense one, so I guess we'll see. Alright, thank you for watching this video, and if you made it this far, leave me a little movie projector down there. Let me know that you stayed until the end, and I appreciate you for doing that. So, until next time, keep being safe and keep being creative, and I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.